It's me, TV's Jen Ponton. And
It is you.
It's the titties from Jersey City, Lillian Bustle.
That's me. Coming to you live from Jersey City.
Live from Jersey City. Live from Bayonne Nights.
Oh my God. I definitely want to open a nightclub called Bayonne Nights.
Please, for the love of God.
That's amazing.
I love it. I have to tell you, I was talking to a dear friend of mine who is a Taurus, and she was expressing like frustration that she was having trouble with something that was brand new to her. And I was like, oh, my best friend's a Capricorn, and she gets very angry if she's not immediately amazing at something.
Oh, livid, furious.
Livid.
Furious.
I love it.
That's why I've had a guitar for so long that I will never ever play. Thespians,
send us your zodiac signs. We want to know them all the time.
Just out of context.
Out of context. Welcome to... Yes.
Just really quick. Unless we're about to make this an ASMR podcast, I just put so much lotion on my hands. So give me just a second. I have to rub it in because I can't go through the next half an hour to an hour covered in candy apple from...
shit.
Oh God.
That one's an old winner for me.
Okay. All right.
That smells like one exact Christmas.
I love it. It's my favorite, but not that much of my favorite. Okay. No. I'm good.
Well done. Okay, thespians. If you too have put on too much lotion before an important performance, this podcast is for you.
I was hoping we were going to cut that out.
Oh, well, now they have to know.
Great. Well,
this is...
I know that if you are into the world of the theater, you understand the importance of being moisturized. So.
Absolutely. Can't be getting those cracked elbows on the stage. Rip them right open. Welcome to Dreading the Boards, friends. We're really veering straight on into all the fucks territory right now. Dreading the Boards, dear thespians, is a podcast for you if you have ever been on stage, on camera, in the world of the biz of show, in any capacity. But really what we specialize in here is telling the stories of performers and the crazy things that we have had to go through to make quote unquote art.
What I did for love. If you've ever shed blood purposefully or accidentally.
Oh shit, we should have a special episode called What I Did for Love that is just like terrible hookups gone wrong.
Oh.
Remember it. Put it in your noggin.
I love a showmance. But today we have a very special guest with us.
Yes, we do. We have fashion and culture writer Gianluca Russo, who specializes on the topic of body diversity. Gianluca is honestly a wunderkind in my personal estimation, writing about size inclusion, specifically in entertainment, in the past in fashion and on television, and most recently making some major waves talking about size inclusion on Broadway, which is really a bit of a deserted, tumbleweed-laden ghost town. Gianluca runs a nylon column called Plus Us, which explores the many ways in which larger-bodied individuals are discriminated against in society today. His work has appeared in GQ, Glamour, In Style, Teen Vogue, and more. He is also the CEO and co-founder of The Power of Plus, a size-inclusive digital community aimed at promoting love, respect, and style for everybody. He is currently writing his debut nonfiction book under the same name, which is set for publication in 2022. So we'll make sure that you have all manner of ways to read Gianluca's writing and be up to date with The Power of Plus, but in the meantime, please welcome Gianluca Russo.
Welcome. Oh my
gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I have to say, I have done, a good amount of podcasts and interviews in the past year. I think that was probably the funniest and most enjoyable one I have done. So I am already living for this conversation. So I'm ready to go in. I'm already living for this.
Amazing. Well,
we like to immediately make assholes out of ourselves so that our guests feel very comfortable.
That's the best thing. Then everyone is ready to go. I mean, that's the best environment.
Well, the question of the evening is, of course, what's your sign and how is it best exemplified in your work?
Okay, this is gonna get me some hate because it's controversial. I know nothing about that.
Amazing.
I literally, which is so bad because I'm really like this like Gen Z kid, like couldn't tell you, don't know anything about it, have no interest in it. Anytime my friends talk about it, I'm like, I gotta go because I literally have no idea what we're talking about. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you because I literally just.
When's
I
your
don't know.
birthday?
My birthday is October 9th.
You're a Libra.
You know, don't know what that means, but fantastic.
Well, we'll let you know at the end whether we think you are or are not a Libra, I guess.
Perfect.
Belated.
Great.
I mean, honestly, my heart would have been so full if he was like, my birthday is January 10th, and I would have been like pure Capricorn energy to not have any idea what astrology is and have no concept and not give a
That's
fuck.
very true. That's what I am.
Oh, so good.
Yay. So, you are now in the world of fashion, but you were a theater kid at heart, yeah?
Yeah, I grew up doing theater. I did theater until the end of high school. I was going to go to school for musical theater and perform. And then my senior year, I said no. And I had no plan. I just decided against it. And so I had to figure something out. And so I started going to college for law, of all things. It was absolutely terrible. But I was like, you know, if Elle Woods can do it, like, maybe so can I. And I quickly found out that I was wrong. So it was bad. It was atrocious, I'm not gonna lie. Literally my first day I ate lunch in the bathroom like Catty Heron in Mean Girls. So was a flop fast. So I was like, I have to find a way to like still feel connected to theater because I'd spent the first 18 years of my life like completely immersed. So I started this like theater blog just to like interview performers and review shows and do all that. And it took off in like a few months, and like within like the third month I was like backstage at Hamilton right after it opened, and I was like, wait, like maybe this is iconic, like maybe I should actually pursue something here. So my first 2 years of writing was all about theater and entertainment. So I worked everywhere. I worked at Playbill and Broadway World and all these places. And then eventually when I got to Teen Vogue, I was doing lifestyle and entertainment for the first year at Teen Vogue. And then this spot in the fashion department opened up and they needed a writer. And I went there to talk about kind of body inclusivity there. And then I just kind of focused on that for a few years. And now I'm kind of switching gears a little and getting back to my roots. But it's kind of been crazy how things have kind of morphed and just progressed.
That's amazing that writing about theater opened those doors for
God,
you.
I
That's so
love
great.
that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely unforeseen. I had no idea any of that would come. But it felt very natural, like, as things went on. So I kind of just went with it. And I've loved every step of the way, even outside of doing theater writing and doing fashion more and everything. It's all been really fun. But I do have to say, like, getting to write about theater again now and going back into that feels more like home to me. So I'm excited to, like, be able to switch back a little.
For sure. You know, and not for nothing. I feel like there's been... of course, it's never really enough, right? Because it's never going to hit 68%. But there's been so much forward movement and motion from designers and just among seeing larger bodies as like fat models. But there are the places where we're not seeing any movement or any growth stick out like sore thumbs. And so I feel like we need the more radical voices to populate those places, especially when like influencing is very fashion centric. And there's, 400 influencers for every designer, every high fashion model. And they are doing the work of like getting the imagery in front of us every single day and sort of like with a little pickaxe of happiness, just scraping away all of the ice and calcic deposits of like, body negativity.
Emotional barnacles.
Emotional barnacles. That's it. But I feel like to a lesser extent, film and TV, but still like light years ahead of theater. Light years. And it breaks my heart because if you come from it, the theater is supposed to be the radical place for radical weirdos. And I think it was when you talk to Kathy Deitch, who is so wonderful and lovely, Kathy has been talking about like how some of the most successful musicals in the last 10 years, let's say, have been specifically about like their underdog stories. And it's about the people who are left out and pushed out and underestimated. And like, there's a great example they're not even tapping into by completely excluding fat kids and fat bodies from the narrative.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be this like safe space, right? For people who have no other home to go to. And that's kind of always how I envisioned, theater and specifically Broadway and New York theater to be growing up. And then I got there after college and I was working on some off-Broadway shows and doing kind of like producing work in this. And I was like, actually, this is worse than it was when I grew up. Like, this was supposed to be better, and actually, it's 100 times worse. And that's kind of why I pulled back too, and eventually when I had the opportunity to leave and go do fashion, I left. Because I felt like, right now, there's not a voice for me here. Like, there's not a place for me yet. And fashion had that. Fashion has been more advanced, more forward. And so, there was a space for me to talk in a way I'd never done before. But when, recently I, writing this book and then kind of, being 5 years into fashion, I was like, I feel like there's a bigger conversation now. I feel like at least people are paying attention enough for there to be a conversation. And so now I feel like, I did a lot in fashion and I've loved that and I'll always have a role in fashion. But I think it's time to like open up a little more because it finally feels like, after the past 20 months, like people are starting to care just a bit more. And I think like jumping on top of that now is so important because I've never kind of seen that kind of hunger for this conversation before.
Right. Right. I love it. I feel like it first really opened the door when someone terrible at the New York Times was like, Broadway actors have gained weight. And everyone was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's a miracle we've survived. And yet you're going to talk about us not fitting in our costumes? Fuck you. And another thing, which, yay, New York.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. And it frustrates me because it's like, so what? Like, the amount of times, like, not to make this about myself, but like growing up, like,
this is your interview.
That is exactly what this is
That's
about.
exactly
literally. But like it frustrates me because it's like, oh, the implication is like gaining weight means you are less talented, that you can't accomplish as much, right? That like you suck because you now weigh 20 pounds more than you did before the pandemic. When really like growing up, like I was the best in my dance classes. Like,
Hell
and I
yeah.
was like double the size of everyone. So I'm like, literally, that's not the way it works. And also like 20 pounds is so insignificant, which is like the national average about how much everyone gained during the pandemic. Like, it's so insignificant. Like, it should not even be a point of conversation because like, if you're talking about like literally like flexibility or like being just in it, like that's fine because like, yeah, like we're out of touch with that. But, like, the weight gain should not be of importance. And until we change that narrative, like, that's one of the biggest issues. It's just that implication that, like, bigger is worse and lesser. And, like, that's what Broadway has clung to for so long. And that's really what we have to start to dismantle right now.
Who am I thinking of? I know you've spoken with him at length. The guy, the academic who has been writing, like, a big, very academic, educational paper / then turning into a book.
Ryan Donovan is his name.
Yes, right. Ryan Donovan did a really in-depth look at what Hairspray is like and like this terrible quandary of, fat bodies playing Tracy Turnblad on Broadway, dancing hard for 8 shows a week and their bodies changing and then them having to like take on really terrible disordered eating, not only to like maintain the shape of the character for the show and also then terrible costume stuff. It becomes a whole just this like terrible bag of rabid weasels when it could just be like, just put us in a Target shirt and let's call it a day. Let us do the show.
That's the thing. I think Hairspray is such a good example to look at because like that show should have in theory set a precedent that it never did. And I feel like that for me is so discouraging because it's like Hairspray was one of the first shows I ever did growing up. And so like I got that message so early on, which is why I think I was able to like be more confident growing up as a bigger person in a very thin space because I had that message very early. But like Hairspray should have set a bigger precedent. And I feel like in a lot of ways looking back now, like it almost in a sense made things worse because it like limited people to one specific thing rather than opening up the conversation.
One specific role.
Oh.
Right.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's like you can only play that. And I'm like, well, I don't think that was the point of what we were trying to prove with this show. So like I actually think that's backwards.
Oh my gosh, Gianluca, I got my equity card And like, I'm going to say months after I got my equity card, the Hairspray tour immediately went non-equity.
Of course it did.
And I was
Always
like,
does. Always does.
What is this nightmare?
And then you're freaking stuck in the equity. And then what are you going to do? Like, the struggle there, like, the whole equity, non-equity thing literally screws people over so much. And, like, that sucks. Like,
Thanks
I'm
for
sorry
nothing,
you went through
Jekyll
that.
and Hyde.
Jesus. I don't have my card anymore. I said you can have it back.
What's the point? Just take it. At this point, everything is non-act. Like, they're even doing first Broadway national tours that are non-act. I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand it at all. It's like, whatever at this point.
Earth. Do you remember this amazing Tumblr called She Has Had It? And it was oh gosh, what's his full name? I'm not going to remember right now, but no, most people didn't know him by his name. They knew him by this Tumblr, She Has Had It, where he would post pictures of like really out there people on the subway, like deeply overdressed in costume with like, you know, all the carts, everything. And then
Jarvis Darryl.
Oh, bless you. Yes, Jarvis Darryl. And he would write up basically a breakdown or like a casting call for this exact person. And it would always be like the non-equity tour of Stomp Jr. It was
Oh my God.
the best thing I've ever seen on the internet.
I'm obsessed with that. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, like, you never really understand what, like, equity, non-equity, like, you never really understand what that crap is. I remember, though, once we did understand it, like, it was always a joke. Like, we would see, like, a, like, crappy production be, like, definitely the non-ec. Like, it just becomes this, like, funny thing to describe people, which is, like, terrible, because, like, getting into equity is, like, so hard. I mean, it's, like, easier now, but it's, like, it's terrible. But literally, that's how it was a descriptor. It became a descriptor for, like, equality. And it's, like, that's so bad. But, the way they, like, position non-equity and, like, equity people is, like, terrible to begin with.
Absolutely. It's so classist.
All of
it's
it's
so
a mess.
terrible.
It's so bad.
So bad.
Do you, when we reached out to you and we were like, this, you know, we would like for you to talk about like some disasters that happen or like terrible, silly things. Was there something specifically that popped into your head where you were like, I got to talk about this?
So I have two things. One of them is I was in a production. This is like the funny one. The other one's like low-key depressing, and then I make it like a power story.
Sure.
But,
Yes.
like pretty much all of my life. Pretty much my whole life. I was
You're in the right place, baby.
I was in a production of Addams Family, and it was like going really well. It was like super fun. I love that show. Like I got to dance every 5 seconds. And essentially what happened, like after high school, like I stopped auditioning for community theater and like regional stuff because I was like studying law. So I stopped. But I would go and like fill in when they needed a dancer. So I like had gone into this production like to go fill in because they needed like, you know, a dance captain. So I went in. And so it was like really great. It was fun. I loved the people, whatever. So opening night we're going, and you know, like the first number in Addams Family is like they're in the graveyard. Like it's very like, you know, dark and like, you know. And so there was like smoke machines, like obviously we had like smoke machines like to fill the ambiance, you know. The problem was like the smoke machines like got stuck on like high or something and like filled the room. And like was a small theater, like was not like 5,000 seats, like was a small place. Literally within 5 seconds the fire alarm going off and we all had to like piece out the building. And so we're standing outside like in the cold, like, and I'm dressed as a ghost. Like, I'm literally just like, great. Like, white makeup, like, great, this is fantastic. And then we went back in and restarted the show, like, after the fighters came. And I was like, you know, off to a bad start, but let's recover. And we recovered. And then it was fantastic.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, we recovered. Like, that's what matters, is that we recovered. So that was my first time that, like, something went bad where I was like, how are we going to handle this right now? Like, what is going to go on? So that was a bit of a mess, I'm not going to lie. But it was like, you know, that was like a lesson in perseverance, right? Like,
Love that.
how to get through,
Yes.
how to get through the difficult moments, you know? So that was a good one. Plus, I liked the show. So it was just funny because we were all like friends and like no one in the audience really cared. Like, it was like, 20 minutes outside. So it was funny, but it was definitely like, let's not do that the other nights. Like, let's actually get rid of the smoke machine and like never do that again. So that was definitely my like biggest like mishap in my theater career, I would say.
I remember the first time somebody because I do shows in basements. It is something that happens when you do burlesque. You're like, you suddenly become subterranean. And somebody was like, oh, be careful with the smoke machine. It'll set off the sprinklers. And I was like,
no.
hardy har, dum-dum. It's not actual smoke.
Uh-oh.
But it's the particulates in the air that it's picking up. But
Oh, God.
seriously,
Right.
like I mercilessly made fun of someone. Did not set off the sprinklers, thank goodness. But I was just like, whatever. You don't know how life works.
Thank God there were not sprinklers in that theater, because if I was on, because we're all white makeup, like rip that, like. So thank God there was no sprinklers there, because that would have made it. Then I don't think we would have recovered. I've been like, cancel the show. We're done. See you tomorrow. Like, we're good.
The number of times a fire marshal has shown up and everyone held their breath.
Yep.
I feel like that's on a bingo card of community
Yeah,
theater.
pretty much. Pretty much. Always the smoke machines. Always the freaking smoke machines.
Backdraft the musical.
Yes.
People don't like fire poked in their nose.
So if like your favorite thing is dancing, how about really super memorable dance recitals? Whether or not they were disastrous, but definitely like best costume ever, most artistic vision, let's say, that your choreographer ever had.
Most artistic
right?
vision.
Like the way that you curate the recital. Because, wow.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I was blessed in that area, because like guys never have to deal with that. Like the costume part, which is like my one blessing. Like rip my friends, but that was my blessing there. Especially because I did like tap for the most part, and then I did like jazz and contemporary, but like mostly was tap. So I was like wearing jeans. Like was nothing like, oh my God, like I have to be squeezed into like a B outfit. Like wasn't that bad.
True. But I'd pay to see it.
Same. I would still pay to see it, honestly.
Yay.
But I think my favorite thing I did my senior year, because like, you know, I like, as all theater kids, like craved attention nonstop. My senior year of high school, I was like, you know, like I got, and we can like get into this, but I had gotten like screwed over with our spring musical. And so I was like, I need like more attention. So I put on this whole like, I was like, I can't leave on that note. Like that was negative. So I put on this whole like, it was supposed to be this like senior talent show, but really it was just like an excuse for me to perform. And so I choreographed like these 3 big numbers, like
Make
the
your
opening,
own opportunities.
That's
Hell yeah.
it. Creating my own opportunities. That's it. And so I started with Magic to Do from Pippin. That was like the opening number.
Right.
And so I choreographed the whole thing, and like obviously was the leading player, and like was probably my best thing to date. I'm not gonna lie, because like not only was it like fun because I got to choreograph it, so like it was actually like really fun. Just the fact that I did this and like put this on for some reason, and then there was like a salsa number and this like huge tap number and all these things, like made no sense, right? But like gave me that internal validation that I needed, and I was like, this was a good one. So that's my favorite dance memory. And also I got to like dance with all my friends before we all like left high school. So it was like our last time to like dance together and perform together, like, and you know, like so many of us haven't
Footloose.
seen each other. Literally, that's what it was. I brought it to life. And so that was like favorite like dance, my favorite like dance memory was just getting to dance with them like one final time, and also like being a little like attention hungry. So that was my favorite.
By the way, if we're still tracking this, thespians, that is a very Libra story. I think you'll all agree with me. Perfect.
Good to know. Good to know I'm staying on brand. Good to know.
Definitely. Oh, very on brand. Gianluca is so beautiful and impeccably fashionable and very well
Thank
spoken
you.
and needs attention.
We love that.
And you have it
That's
all.
what I say. That's the thing. It's like anytime I'm like talking to someone, if I'm like dating or just like with my friends, I'm like, just so you know, I require a high amount of attention and require a lot from relationships. And like, I'm upfront. That's the thing. I feel like if you hide it, it's when it's good. But I'm like, just so you know, like even my friends, I'm like, to have a good friendship, I require a lot in return. Like, just the way I am. Like, I give 100%, which I feel like is a very, like, I learned from theaters. Like, you always give 100%. And then I require 100% back. So I feel like that's, like, ingrained in me. But I'm always very, like, upfront about it. I'm like, just so you know, this is the way I am.
Ooh,
Just so you know.
friendship contracts. Lillian loves
Yeah.
that.
Pretty much.
Teach people how to treat you.
Exactly.
Treat people how to teach you. Both ways, sure.
That's what I live by.
I love it. So talk a little bit about this spring musical that was very,
Oh my God.
yeah, where you were robbed.
It starts my it's like first of all, I've never told this story in public before. Like, if you ask anyone I went to high school with, like, if I say, like, TBT the junior year, they're like, oh, rip. But, like, I never tell the story in public yet because that's been, like, something that, like, harms me. But now I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to tell it.
Hey, that's literally our brand.
So this is my first time, for everyone, this is my first time telling the story in the public. But essentially what happened... Oh, can't wait. But essentially what happened was my sophomore year, I didn't do the musical. And so I felt, like, very out of place. And, like, I was pretty insufferable back then. Like, I was just, like, really annoying young kid. So I was like, okay, let me take a year off and, like, work on myself. Right? Like, I was, like, going through an identity crisis. I was like, let me take a year off and, like, really learn who I am. Like, everyone hates me, so let me figure out a way to, like, switch the narrative, right? And so I was like, okay. And also I was, like, not talented. Like, I've never taken voice lessons. I've never taken dance. Like, I was bad, which is fine. Like, most people are bad when they just start out. I was like, whatever. So I took sophomore year off, and they did South Pacific, which is a show that I don't really, like, even if that's, like, I just don't like South Pacific. And so I didn't do it. And so instead I went to our middle school and, like, co-directed Thoroughly Modern Millie there. Which is, like, really fun. Lived for that show. That's where I found my love for tap, was doing that. So I was like, okay, I love this. This is great. And then they announced that my junior year they were going to do this musical called All Shook Up. And it's, like, this Elvis jukebox musical. And I live for it. And, like, no one knew what it was at the time. Like, I had no idea.
Was that Cheyenne Jackson on Broadway?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember this.
And so I was like, okay, this is going to be my return. So, like, I have been gone for a year. Like, no one essentially knows anything about me at this point. And also now I've been taking dance, like, taking voice. Like, I at least have a level of skill I didn't have before. So I'm going to make a comeback.
And
so
are you from New York?
I'm from upstate New York in Albany.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, now's my time. So I spent that, because they announced the musical in, like, May or June. So I spent the whole summer, like, preparing. Like, I watched that show every day. I knew exactly what role I was going for. I knew what I was going to sing. I memorized the entire score. I memorized every single part of the script. Like, I was ready to go. So when the audition came, I was ready. And I was told the week before by someone who was also auditioning, who had been in the shows, that I was not going to get the role because I was too fat and they needed someone skinny to play it.
No!
And I was like, rip me. And I'm like, a child. I'm like, why would you say this to me? And also, this is a child. I'm like, what the heck? So I already had it in my head, like, I don't look the part, I have to overcompensate, which I feel like is, like, something so many of us, like, feel growing up.
100%.
Absolutely.
It's the worst. And so I auditioned, and I thought it was, like, good. Like, I sang Can't Take My Eyes Off of You from Jersey Boys, and I was like, okay, this was, like, decent, whatever. And then all my friends, my new friends, I had, like, gotten in with, like, new people, so they all auditioned too, and the night of the callbacks went out, and, like, everyone got a callback except for me. And I was like, what the heck is this? Like, rip, because I didn't even get the chance to show that, like, I knew this role so well. The next morning I wake up and I get an email from the director who was like, oh, actually we rethought our decision and we're going to call you back. And I said, that's interesting that within 12 hours you randomly called a meeting. This points to a theme with this man. Sorry to this man, but continues, and I got the role. Because of course I was going to get the role. I literally had been practicing it for 6 months at that point. And so it was iconic. It was a moment where I was like, wow, like, I actually did this against the odds. A month into rehearsals, I had to give up the role because I had this, like, there was one scene in the show where I had this, like, not to, like, get full into it, but I had this, like, just a religious, like, conflict with the show. Like, I didn't feel comfortable doing one thing that was in the show. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't change it. And it wasn't something that was in the script. It was something that he had put in, and he wouldn't change it.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
And so I was like, well, literally, like, I cannot do this. Like, and so he's like, well, then we're left with no choice. And so I had to give up the role. And my nemesis got the part. And I was like, rip my life. I was so depressed. Like, and this was when I was 16 years old.
So upset.
It was so bad.
So
and I was like,
oh my God.
Literally, first of all, could make this a religious discrimination suit right now. But I didn't do it because, like, theater directors have so much power over these children. And at the time I was like, God forbid I make a big deal now. I'm not getting next year. And I already lost this role. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'll suck it up. So he was like, okay, well, you be in the ensemble. I was like, I guess. So I was in the ensemble, but I was like, if I'm going to be in the ensemble, I'm going to be in the ensemble. Let me tell you, I literally got vocal nodules from how loud I was screaming from the back of that stage.
Oh, no.
And everyone knew. But it was worth it because every scene I was in, I pulled attention. And I literally was like, the star of the ensemble. And to make it worse, this man put me as one of the 3 backup singers in the number that was supposed to be mine, swaying side to side. And I said, and so let me tell you, I've never screamed an ooh so loud in my life than I was doing then. And everyone, all my friends in the audience was like, literally, we can only hear you right now. And I was like, that's the point. That was the intent.
Oh
and
my
so
God,
this
the
like
spite.
screwed me over.
Performance is through
Yeah.
the roof.
This screwed me over. And so I was like, you know what? It's fine. Like, I have next year, like, whatever, it's fine. This man picks a show. I don't know if you guys know the show Curtains, but I hate that show with a burning passion.
Oh, David Hyde Pierce.
Yes.
You hate that show?
With a burning passion. Because it's like in retrospect, it's fun, like, if I'm doing it. As my senior show was not the show I wanted my senior year.
Oh, okay. Reframed entirely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And it is like a theater nerdgasm, right? Like it's
Right.
just jokes on jokes on jokes on jokes.
That's it. And it's very old,
and
like, it's for old white men.
It's hacky. It's
Yeah.
hacky. And while it is funny, I think it's funny. As a matter of fact, my friend Lauren and I were laughing so hard when we saw it that the people in front of us got mad at us. But but I can see if you were like, I can't wait to have like whatever my breakout fabulous
Right.
role is, and then they're like, what about this old man show?
Oh.
Right. And that was the problem. Because everyone who came to see the show was like, oh my God, it was so much fun. I was like, really? Because I had none. And now looking back at it, like, I'm like, okay, like, if I had a better senior show, it was just because it was my senior show. And, like,
Of
me
course,
and this other girl had
yes.
always, since 8th grade, like, me and my friend had been like, our senior year we're going to be, like, the romantic leads. Like, always what we wanted. And that was supposed to happen junior year before I gave up that role. Like, we were cast as romantic leads our junior year. And so I was like, okay, it's going to happen this year. And the second the show was picked, I was like, no. And the part I skipped over here, which I will add in for, since this is the first time I'm telling the story, is my junior year, this man's son had transferred into our school. And so the nepotism was strong here, was so strong, to the point where even the administrators in the school were made aware of it. So was bad. So the second Curtains was picked, I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't have the lead. There's no way I can play this man. Like, it's picked for him. We're done. And so I was right. I mean, it was picked for him. I got, like, a side lead, which was, like, boring, but I was like, fine. And so I was at my wit's end. I'd been screwed over junior year. I'd been screwed over senior year. I was like, I put in too much. And so this is the part that you'll be able to read about in this future book that I'm writing. Me and my 3 other friends who all felt this way were like, we need to get back at this man. And so in a very, like, petty way, we started this Gossip Girl account to expose him.
Oh,
And let me tell you, it was iconic for the 2 weeks it lasted before people found out and suspension was threatened. But it was iconic, let me tell you. And
Was
everyone...
it on Twitter or what?
It was on Tumblr because it was
Oh,
safer
right,
there for us. And let me tell you, it was a legendary moment for me because I felt like I had that power back. And then once my academics were threatened, I was like, okay, actually, we need to delete this. Like, actually delete this right now. But it was the best 2 weeks of my life. And so I left that theater program, like, I didn't even enjoy it. Like, I enjoyed my freshman year, which was Hairspray, and was amazing.
Yeah.
And then everything after that, I was like, this man ruined my life.
No.
And so that was my struggle. And then I did community theater, which was, like, great. But that was the problem that I had in, like, high school was, like... And that's my thing now, is, like, why I'm so, like, about, like, getting things right in theater. Because I started talking to people, I was like, wait, my experience is not singular. Like, actually, so many people have dealt with, like, crappy high school theater directors who, like, are abusive in so many ways and really bad. And, like, just get away with it because they hold so much power over these kids. Like,
and no
it's
one's paying
terrible.
attention. They're all playing.
No
No one's
one.
paying attention to football.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. No one cares. Literally no one cares. Like, this man could do whatever he wanted. No one cares. And so I was like, and the things he got away with, like, was crazy. And so that's why now I'm like, have that spirit where it's like, time to take the power back. So that's how I feel about the future.
Yes.
But that's why my high school, like, I wish my high school theater career was, like, better. Like, it was a mess. That's why when I left high school and, like, started to do, like, I did, like, West Side Story after and, like, Addams Family and all these other shows, I was like, wait, this is what theater is supposed to be. Like, actually enjoyable, right? Like, you actually feel like part of something. Whereas, like, my high school theater experience was, like, would not recommend to anyone.
It's awful. I had not completely similar experience. And our theater director was great. Our drama director was amazing. But our choir director just like had it out for me. And I remember telling this story to like other people's parents and then being like, what? Why would he do that? Why would he treat you like that? We went to the vice principal and she was like, well, I feel like maybe this is getting blown out of proportion. And I was like, I don't know what about it being constantly shamed in front of all my peers is out of proportion. Like,
right. It's ridiculous.
I'm not crying. I'm sitting here calmly telling you about every time he has abused me in front of everybody that I know and sing with.
Literally, it's ridiculous what they get away with.
Yeah, and I've had vocal problems on and off for probably my whole life. And he would be like, you're singing wrong. And I knew that I was singing wrong because it felt wrong. But did he ever help me? No. Oh, God.
It's insane.
Anyway.
It's the worst. But I will say, like, as bad as it was, like, I look back on that junior year, and, like, me and my friends do as well, and, like, there were many other stuff that happened that I didn't mention, but, like, as bad as it was, like, the end show was so good, because it was, like, 3 days where we're, like, you know, screw this, man, screw everything that's happening, like, let's just have fun and make it about ourselves, and, like, actually live it. And so the show experience, I've never had a show experience that was that much fun in my life. Like, the build-up was so bad, but the show was everything because it was, like, it was authentic in a way that I had, like, never felt before. And so we look back at, like, All Shook Up, and I'm, like, literally my graduation cap literally said, this high school made me all shook up. Like, it is a running joke. Like, this year, because it was, like, the worst and the best at the same time. So looking back, like, had negatives and positives, but I just hope, like, for other people, it's high school theater is more enjoyable than it was for me.
Yes.
It gets better.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Literally.
But it gets the best when you create opportunities for your own self.
Heck
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
So you've been dropping little crumbs here and there, and I'm not certain they're all about your book or like a new focus for columns. Are you coming back to performing?
Yes.
Yes!
I guess I can say that.
How much do you want to talk about it? Or not
I
at
can
all?
talk about it. No, I can talk about it. You know, I was talking to, so I wrote this book, The Power of Plus, which comes out next summer. And it's all about fashion. And it was great. And it felt like my final thing. It felt like I was summarizing the past 5 years in fashion. That I had really said everything I had to say. That I had taken the time to, like, elevate the people whose stories I loved and wanted more people to hear. And the book is now done, and I finished writing it, and we're getting ready for it to come out in August. And I was talking to my agent, and I was like, you know, I feel like I'm done. Like, I loved it, and I lived fashion, and it was great. And, like, I still love fashion in the sense that, like, I love getting dressed, and, like, but I feel like I did what I needed to do. And I feel like now I have to return home and, like, back to what drives me. And so I'm going back. And so I'm excited. And, yeah, I have a plan that's, like, I'm always very strategic with things. Like, I plan very well. And so I have a plan that I'm going to come back. And I'm, like, excited for it. And it feels like what I was always meant to do. Like, the fashion thing, it was never in my cards. Like, I never knew that was happening. And it came, and it was the most beautiful thing. And I, like, learned everything about myself working in fashion, right? And I'll always be in fashion in some capacity. But I was like, it's not fully me. Like, and I know who I am, and it's not here. And so I'm coming back. And so I started, like, taking dance classes again and, like, auditioning and doing things. And then also, like, you know, my next book is about theater kids. And, like, I have another book that's about, like, being plus size in Hollywood and what's that like. And so I have both those books that are happening right now. And it feels great. It feels like what I was always supposed to do. Like, I took a detour, and I loved it. But now it's time to go back to, like, what I always knew would be my life. And so I, like, am so at peace and, like, excited about it that when I was, like, planning this out and it all came out so naturally, I was like, okay, this is it. And I always, like, follow this advice from, like, Elaine Welteroth, who used to be the old editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. And she says to, like, trust your excitement. Like, a lot of people say, like, trust your gut or your intuition. Like, I don't really understand what that means, but, like, trust your excitement is something you always know. And so, like, this is what I'm so excited about. And, like, I know that this is what's next, is to, like, come back here. And so that's what I'm doing next after this book drops. And I'll, like, of course, the next year I'll still be in fashion. And, like, slowly you'll see, like, I have some more things that are non-fashion focused that I'll be integrating back in. But after this year, it's time to, like, kind of, like, change gear. And still talking about, like, body positivity and inclusivity. Like,
God,
that will
of
always be
course.
my focus. But just on a different industry now.
And I think that's really, you know, all things all things for a reason, right? Like maybe All Shook Up was part of the reason that you were like, fuck theater by the time you were ready for undergrad. But like your presence in fashion has been dynamic and catalytic, and also like so not only so little space taken up in fashion by plus size bodies, but especially fashionable plus size male bodies. Like,
oh yeah,
you are a very
I hear
unique
that
voice.
all the time, and I'm so pleased when I can point people to men who are making waves, talking about things like this, because guys are fucking bereft. Like
Completely.
masculine presenting people of all kinds are just like feel left in the dust.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. And I think that was like one of the hardest things for me too. And I feel like I always know like when to do something and when to not. And I like would love to have that conversation further and would love to help that. And like the pessimist in me is like that industry's not ready for that. Like as much as like I'm waiting to be a part of that conversation, and like I know so many of like the other men around me are, like the industry isn't ready yet. So like I'll come back when it is time to have that conversation, but I know that like this conversation on Broadway needs to be had first.
For
and so,
sure.
like, let me go there and do
Yes.
that. And then when the time comes, like I can jump back, but like this is what I need to do next. And so like I feel like now's the time to do it.
Right. Right.
So what you said about following your excitement really resonated with me for a couple of reasons. I have I've mentioned to Jen like a million times a project that I've had in mind about taking fairly classic, fairly well-known plays and casting them with all bigger-bodied people. And
Right.
the only thing that has kept me from it is that, oh my God, I know what a pain in the ass producing is. Well,
Yeah.
I need angel investors. But like, you know, I feel like I'm at a place where I could do more fundraising. In February, I'm about to do an all plus size burlesque show, which I'm really excited about. And I just think it is so almost, it's upsetting to me how revolutionary it feels, but that's where the excitement comes from. Like, can you imagine just like Streetcar Named Desire is always what I come back to, just like that show, but with larger people. Because I've never fucking seen it. I would love to.
Right.
Yeah.
Be
It
the
would be
change you
amazing.
want to see.
Right.
Exactly. And I feel like now's the time, right? Like that's why I feel
Absolutely.
like now is the time to do it, because there's like a certain level of hunger, like no pun intended, but like for more of this, right? Like, and I feel it so much more than I ever felt it before. And so even like when I wrote that piece for Teen Vogue about like the lack of size inclusivity on Broadway, like the response I got, I was like, okay, now's the time. Like no one would have gotten this before. Like now is the time. And so like, do I see myself necessarily like performing again? Like not really. Like I loved performing. I don't know if I love performing anymore. Like it was great, but I think it was like just part of me finding my voice. But like being able to like now like not only write books that are on this topic and like report on it, but like consult with shows and like help behind the scenes and like
Yes.
create
That's awesome.
this environment. Like that's what I want to do, because that's what I was able to do in fashion that I never even knew existed. Like I didn't know that
Fuck,
people did
yes.
that. So that's what I want to be able to do. Is like, yes, like I have these books and like I want to write about theater and do all that, but also like I want to be able to consult on shows. Like I want to be behind the scenes and like making sure that like everything is inclusive, from like the casting to the imagery to just like the environment, right? And like the way people are spoken to behind the scenes. So like that's my goal of what I really want to do.
Fat coordinator.
Yes. Oh my God, my title's already good. Already got the title for it. Perfect.
Love it. I love it. That's beautiful, because I do see you as such an intrepid person, and having made such strides, and like I think it's so perfect that your personality and drive came of age during a time when the like veneer between straight size power and plus size resistance was at its weakest. And then you were like, how about this? And like all of a sudden these conversations started to be had. And I really do think I really do think like it just actually it hurts my heart on a daily basis that theater is somewhere where I don't even get to audition for theater. That's how completely exclusive it is. That the gatekeeping is so thorough and it's so clearly anti-fat that it's not even about my resume at that point. Unless I'm like, you know, a living room staple and they build a show around me as like a stunt cast thing. I don't get to audition for the Atlantic or primary stages, or it just doesn't happen. And so to see that level of impossibility, let alone people who are up and coming and like dynamic and have to build a resume and don't have, you know, a storied career to draw from, it's a shame, especially when we've been told all our lives in school before that no one will ever want to see you on TV or in movies because you're not beautiful enough for TV and movies. You've got to be on stage. It's so fucked.
That's the thing. It's like there's no winning. Like you're presented with no option unless you find a way to create your own.
Right. Exactly.
And yet, I hadn't seen Come From Away on Broadway, but when it came out in the filmed version, I lost my mind. I was like, this is the show everyone loves so much. This is the show that people's hearts explode. And it has so much diversity in it. Mm-hmm. And so many larger people because we have stories to tell.
But I think that's the thing, too, is, like, at this point, like, it's no longer a conversation of, like, does representation matter? Like, we know it matters. The conversation is now is, like, do you care enough to make it a priority?
1,000%.
And, like, that's the thing. Like, when I came into, like, fashion in 2015 or whatever, like, it was a conversation of, like, does representation really matter, right? Like, it's been proven, right? Like, we know it already. Now it's, like, how much do you care about actually making it at the center of what you're doing? And I think that's what we're seeing more of now because, like, I mean, tell me why every freaking alphabet is thin. Like, it is a story about why are they thin and white is what I would love to know. Like, it is a story about someone who is other. Like, literally the definition of other, and you have literally, like, the same person playing it. Like, make it make sense to me. Like, it does not make any sense because, like, and that's what I was talking to Kathy about.
That'll work.
Right? Literally, why not? Like, that's what I was talking to Kathy about in that piece. It's like in Evan Hansen, like, why does he have to be thin? Like, tell me, because honestly, it would make a lot of sense if he was fat. Like, all these things that, like, that's
but there's no songs about him being fat, so
right. So then it's like, unless it's explicit and it's a joke, they're like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, we're good. Right. It's like I just saw the national tour of Mean Girls, and the freaking, like, Damien was, like, thin. And I was like, what is this? Like, can we have something? Like, please, can we have something?
Right.
Shocking.
Like,
yeah. As much as I love Sherry Renee Scott, when she played Ursula, I was like, why?
Yes.
Why?
Like, it is insane. But it's like, yeah, someone has to, like, get behind there and open the door because they're not going to open it by themselves. And that's what I, like, think of, like, as my driving thing is, like, just get in there because I have a certain level of, like, connection where I can get in there now. Like, get in there and open the door because, like, people are still keeping it shut.
Definitely. Oh, I love that.
Man, I want to go kick
God,
some
that's
ass.
so good. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, let's finish up with one of our favorite questions. What's one of the weirdest things you've ever been strong-armed into going to see?
Like as an audience member.
Ooh. Oh my God. Okay, so
It doesn't have to be bad, but odd.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it is bad, but
Right. Even better.
So when I was first studying law, I went to this community college, and the acting teacher there, like, was, I don't know if you know what this is, like, was really set on this acting method that's called the Margolis method. I don't know if you've heard it.
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
You should research it, but also, like, don't research it, but, like, you can if you want to. But it's, like, this very, like, physical, kind of, like, experimental, a kind of acting style that's, like, really weird. And I was like, oh, interesting, whatever. At first you think it's interesting. It's like, oh, theater is experimental. Like, no. Another level.
Ruh-roh.
And so I went to their, like, performance showcase thing. And they were, like, aliens that were, like, don't even remember what the plot was other than they were aliens. But it was honestly, I walked away from that more confused than I was already about what the style of acting is. And I was just in shock. Like, literally, I was like, you know,
Yes.
I don't think this is for me. I think, some people love it. Like, he loved it. Other people, I was like, good for you. I will never understand this.
Can you give us a for instance about this? Because now I'm so piqued.
I literally can, like, hardly, I just know it was, like, physical. Like, at times it almost looked like contemporary dance, but, like, not skilled. So it looked like, you know, when you see people like when they're like, oh, like when someone's talking about dance and they like just start like moving and call it like interpretive dance, like making fun of it, like that's what it looked like, but they were acting through it.
Great.
So it was, you know, Google it, YouTube it, like there are videos of people doing it, but it was very it was interesting to say the least. I never went back. I never supported another production. I was like, you know, you guys love it, go ahead. I'm gonna take a step back and
Bless.
I'm a peace out. Yeah, but good for you. Good for you.
Yes. Oh God, that's delightful. Gianluca, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. You are
Of course,
a joy.
thank you.
A legendary
Thank you so much for having
Libra,
me.
indeed.
Oh, perfect. Glad I lived up to that. Glad I lived
Oh,
up to that.
1,000%.
Good.
1,000%. I am really I look forward to your fashion stuff always, and even more so, I'm so glad that we've brought you to the jazz hands side because we need you. And
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great journey ahead.
Beautiful. So in preparation for your book coming out next summer, where can people find you, keep up with you, get updates, all that stuff?
Yeah, so I'm on social media at G_Russo1, and I post literally everything there, all my articles and everything, so you can go there, and then you can pre-order my book on Amazon. It comes out in August.
Beautiful. Thespians, we're going to have his socials in the show notes, so you can click on and follow him and get that book on pre-order. So excited. And by the way, when it comes out, we would love to have you on All the Fucks so that you can tell us even more stories
Let's do it.
about showbiz, but especially about beyond.
Yeah, 1,000% I'm up for it.
Yay.
Amazing. Thank you so much. What
Amazing.
a joy.
Oh, God, such a joy. All
Thank you.
Thespians, till next time.
Papa Pasty. That's what we say. That's what we say in burlesque. Dance has married. I believe opera is toy, toy, toy. Papa Pasty in burlesque.
That's what toy, toy, toy means.
No, I don't think that's. I mean, I don't know what the direct translation is of that word, but
I think you. Me,
Oh.
me, me, me.
well,
You.
all right.
Well-
That's all any of us want, right?
Me. More attention now. Go
If
look.
we could all figure out a way to get the applause without actually having to do the performance.
Yay. We're clapping for you, Thespians.
And we'll see you next time.
All right. That's all for now.